Welcome into America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates. Securities offered through Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Advisory services offered through the Retirement Guys Formula, registered investment advisor. America's Retirement Headquarters, America's Medicare Associates, and the Retirement Guys Formula are separate and independent entities from Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Welcome into, and thanks so much for joining us here on America's Retirement Headquarters. It is the home of the Retirement Guys Formula, America's Medicare Associates, and Retirement Tax Partners with Nolan Baker and Dan Trombley. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. Once again, that's 419-794-3030. You can find out more about the team, set up a time to speak with them as well on the website, and that is arhq.com. Today on the show, 3 steps to take during volatile markets. What are the downsides of taking Social Security early, and how to avoid going back to work after retirement? All this and more, but before we dive in, let me check in. Nolan and Dan, glad to be with you for another show. How are we doing today?
But doing fantastic. Yeah, I get to enjoy over the last couple of weeks some good hockey I've been watching. I know a lot of people are March Madness with basketball, but I've been watching some of the hockey. We had some of the NCAA hockey tournaments here in Toledo at the Huntington Center, which was great. And then I have also been watching Penn State do pretty well with a local native. Ben Schoen plays on that team, and I know awesome. He used to play back at Anthony Wayne. So kind of cool watching and cheering them on. Let's go.
Local guys.
Right. Columbus got knocked out in the tournament, so I guess it's on to cheering for somebody else.
There you go.
Sometimes it's fun to cheer for a second team. Sometimes it's just fun to cheer against a team. That's been my case in the March Madness tournament. We won't talk about how my bracket was in shambles pretty early on, but
mine as well.
Yeah, these things do happen. But gentlemen, always appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. Dan, of course, is a big part of the team at America's Medicare Associates. And I want to lead in actually with this story, Dan, with you specifically. Health insurance provider Humana has announced it's going to be dropping 550,000 customers who have its Medicare Advantage plans. The company says the products are less profitable. They want to cut costs and shore up its stock price, efficiency. We kind of see throughout the news these days with Doge, with this another one of these cases. But this is affecting people. If they were to get a notification that, hey, their Medicare Advantage plan is no longer an option, what are their options? What can they do?
Yeah, this is becoming more and more of a trend. You see some carriers trying to decertify out of certain counties, see them looking to streamline their products. If a Medicare Advantage member receives a letter like this from their current carrier, they got a couple different options. Obviously, we're here to help them in any way we can kind of navigate those waters. They can actually be given a special election period to go back to original Medicare if we are outside of the Medicare Advantage open enrollment period, which ends March 31st. So if that should happen to a client of ours, we would be notified immediately, work to get them back into a plan. Most of the times they're going to be crosswalked into a new plan that carrier has in their current service area. If that's not the case, then they can go back to original Medicare and possibly a Medicare supplement at that time. That's all things that we do here at the office just to help and make sure that everybody is properly insured with their coverage that they need.
It's a tricky situation because obviously we talk so much with Scott on the show. The annual election period is a big focus. The open enrollment period, as you mentioned, just wound down. But there are situations, and here's the truth of it: people turn 65 every single day. So Medicare is still something on the forefront, and it's something that you guys help people with, whether it is, finding the right plan for them in that initial phase, the open enrollment annual election, or in special cases like this, where hopefully, you aren't being affected by this, but it does happen day in and day out. Like we said, some 550,000 customers found without. So if you have questions about the Medicare side of it, or, any aspect of it, the team at America's Retirement Headquarters, they can help you out. All you need to get started is reach out and set up a time to speak with them. You can go to arhq.com. or give a call. It's 419-794-3030. Once again, 419-794-3030. Scott, Dan, the entire team there to help you answer any Medicare questions you may have. So often here on the show, we talk about controlling what you can control. When it comes to the markets, a lot of us feel like, especially when it's volatile, we should be doing something, taking control how we can, but we're not entirely sure what. Well, Carrie Hannon of Yahoo Finance has a few easy steps to follow.
Well, sit on your hands a little bit. Wait before you make any big emotional moves, okay? Number two, it's important to stay in equities no matter how close you are to retirement. This is where your growth is going to continue to come from. That said, the older you are and the closer you are to retirement, you need to shift a bit into, some cash equivalents or some great fixed income opportunities. We're just at the beginning of what I would anticipate to be a few years of volatility. And so periodically you should be rebalancing anyway, but this might be a good time to have that conversation.
So basically, sit on your hands and stay the course, unless. So what do you think of her advice here? And what are some steps, like 3 steps to take during times of market volatility?
Well, I think you really don't want to be an emotional investor. So there are really 3 steps that I would recommend during the market volatility that we're seeing right now. First and foremost, you want to know what you own. You want to look at your investments and have a really good understanding, in the portfolio. One of the things that I like about the model portfolios that we run at Retirement Guys Formula is in many of the portfolios, we have individual stock positions. So, in having an individual stock, I know that I own companies that are cash rich. I know that I own companies that are low debt. I know that the companies, have nice profit margins. I know the companies, have a competitive advantage and or are needed on a daily basis. And so, when you know what you own, it makes you feel a lot more comfortable. We're in an environment right now where I think a lot of people don't know what they own. They might own 5 or 6, 7 different mutual funds, but ultimately, if those mutual funds end up all owning the same thing, you get this concentrated risk that's in the marketplace right now. It's something like we saw back in the 2000 crash when people thought they were diversified, had 5, 6, 7 different mutual funds, but they all own the same technology stock. And because of the fact that you have such a high concentration of a couple of stocks in the major market indexes, you could be facing that concentration risk. So right now with a volatile market, you want to know what you own. One way that we can help with that is we can put your portfolio in our software and it'll tell us what the concentration of your investments are. So if you have a high concentration in a couple of companies, when you thought you were diversified, that's something in a volatile market you'd want to know. Number 2, what you want to do is you want to know what the purpose is for each account. Good example there is it's been a couple of years since we had volatility in the market. We had really a good 2-year run that the market, just seemed to go up without much volatility. It wasn't until recently that we had, the concern about the tariffs and international issues that, created volatility in the marketplace. So in looking at what the purpose of the account is, a good example is a few years ago when the market was down, I remember my son, I think at the time he was 20 years old, came in and, took his 401k statement, kind of threw it down on my desk and said, "Dad, this, 401k, this market really stinks." And I'm like, "Well, buddy, you're 20 years old. You don't need that money for a real long time." The purpose of that account right now is to accumulate as many shares as you possibly can. Because when you get closer to retirement time, the negative returns in the early years don't really have any impact. Now, as Carrie pointed out in the quote, as you get closer to retirement time, those folks don't have the luxury of time to make up for major losses. So an investor right now that maybe is pulling money, if you have like a variable annuity account, or if you're pulling money out of your 401k or your stock market account, if it's heavily invested in equities, somebody that's close to or in retirement time, that's where you could get into trouble, because if the purpose is to provide current income and you're really heavily focused on equities, which is really designed for long-term growth, and you're forced in a situation in an extended down period market where you're selling off your investments and being forced to sell off at a loss, that's where you could kind of get in trouble. So again, know what the purpose of the account is. I believe that your equity-based accounts, they can be great for younger folks. They can be great for retirees, but really you want to let those equities have, 5+ years to grow. So if you think you're going to need that money in the next 5 years, maybe having that money in equities is not the purpose of what that account should be designed to do. And the third is you want to turn volatility into opportunity. I had met with a gentleman. He came in recently, took advantage of our tax offer at Retirement Tax Partners, met with Danny, and we got Lana, the CPA, to get the taxes prepared. And when we were putting it together, what we had noticed is that he had the ability to do a conversion and move some money over to a Roth IRA and stay at the 12% tax bracket. And looking at the stock market, again, depends on what day you're watching this show or the video on YouTube, but at that point, the market was down about, 10, 12, 15% from where its highs were. And so he has the ability where he can convert over, taking advantage of the volatility in the market, looking at the opportunity that the market had a pullback, taking advantage of the 12% tax bracket, and then building up a bucket of what could be potentially tax-free money inside of that account. And that way, if and when the market bounces back, which history has shown it always does,
Right,
that growth that they're going to get in that Roth IRA is tax-free. The volatility to create opportunity would also hold true going back to my first point, which is to know what you own. So if you looked at a company and you know why you bought the company and the reason why you bought the company, if the market sells off because people are not making smart decisions, they're making those emotional decisions and going in and selling off their investments in their 401k, and you can look at your holdings and say, wow, I liked the company when it was that price. Now it's even cheaper, gives you the opportunity to look at where you can pick up some opportunities in the market. When other people are panicking, you turn those panics into opportunities. So that's 3 steps to take during the volatile market. If you want to know about concentration in your portfolio, want to know what you own, and you want to know, where are there different opportunities, what should you be doing, that's what we can help with. And putting together that investment policy statement, showing you the concentration of your portfolio and giving you advice on how to position your portfolio for 2025 and beyond is exactly what we do here at America's Retirement Headquarters.
making moves just for the sake of making moves, probably not going to be the best decision because that could ultimately lead to some mistakes, letting emotion creep in, but being tactical about it, knowing where the threats and the opportunities lie, that is something the team at America's Retirement Headquarters can help you with. That investment policy statement, as Nolan mentioned there, available to you if you're not entirely sure of what you own or what moves you should be making during these increasingly volatile times. Just reach out, set up a time to speak with them, 419-794-3030, or you can go to the website, and that is arhq.com. Earlier, we were talking about, being able to turn volatility into opportunity. If you missed that conversation, you can check it out on podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all the previous content from America's Retirement Headquarters up there for you to check out at your leisure. But I do want to expand on that a little bit, Nolan, because, let's be honest, watching your retirement accounts lose money in a falling market isn't fun. But market strategist Ken Polcari tells Fox Business down markets do come with opportunity.
This pullback is actually very healthy. It's long overdue. It feels certainly uncomfortable, but in times like this is when, as a long-term investor, you really need to kind of really take out your shopping list. This is very active individual stock management, right? You want to pick up names that are on sale, really good names, top of the line, the largest mega cap names in the industries that you want that are really on sale, because this too shall pass. But I do think there's going to be a little bit more churn lower.
How do you turn down markets into an opportunity?
I really think that for your long-term growth part of your portfolio, the philosophy that we've talked about on the show for years is called the independent income system. That's really the way on how to retire. And when you follow the philosophy of the independent income system, what we have is the different buckets of money that are designed for different purposes. And so in one bucket that you have is reliable income of Social Security, pensions, and non-market risk investments that covers what your income needs are. Then it allows you to look at your stock market investments to turn down markets into an opportunity. And as I mentioned before, it has been a couple of years since we've seen a bit of a pullback in the market. So we get very comfortable with seeing our account statements just go up, not realizing that it's not normal. It is normal that the markets actually have pullbacks on what we're looking like today. When we look at that, there's 2 ideas that I want to give to you to tell you how to turn down markets into an opportunity for you. Now, first, number 1 is if you look at what the biggest debt a retiree typically has in retirement time, Chris, what would you think it would be?
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I would say for a lot of people, it's usually maybe a mortgage, right? They might go into retirement time with a mortgage. And I think, paying off a mortgage before retirement is a great idea. But actually, one of the biggest debts that they have moving into retirement time is the taxes that is owed on their retirement account.
Oh, yeah.
So when you look at it, you have a tax-deferred vehicle. So most people have been taught to save and invest in a tax-deferred 401k. Maybe you have an IRA, and you set up that account and you're deferring taxes until some point in the future. Well, when the market goes down, again, it doesn't feel good when you look at your account value statement and that statement goes down. But the reality is if you do the conversion when the market is down, it's an incredible opportunity that when the market bounces back, if you got that Roth conversion completed, you have the potential to have all of that gain on the recovery be tax-free dollars. I'll give you an example. I had a gentleman that came into the office, again, met with our company called Retirement Tax Partners. And not only did we get his taxes prepared for 2024 of doing all of the filing of federal, state, and local, we also provided him what's called a what-if tax analysis and showing him an idea on looking at doing some conversions. He had money left that he had the ability to convert a portion of his money over and stay in a 12% tax bracket. And with the out-of-control spending that we've had going on in Washington for years, if not decades now, and the massive amount of unfunded liabilities, in my opinion, I'd say it's fair and reasonable to say that tax rates could be significantly higher in the future. Yet, if he could do the conversion now, he knows that he's only going to pay the 12% tax rate because that's the bracket that he's in. Yet doing it also when the market just had a 10 or 15% sell-off means that he is doing it at a lower account value. And then as the market rebounds and recovers, if it bounces back from the short-term sell-off, and this is just a temporary thing, like we oftentimes will see when the markets talk about tariffs, then he's already got his return on investment in a pretty short amount of time if the market does bounce back. So down markets, Roth conversions, good opportunity, strategic and tactical. If you don't know how that applies to your situation, I know we're kind of right at tax season time, but before you take your taxes and put them in the filing cabinet, if you call our office, what we can do is we can do a what-if analysis for you, and we'll take a look at your tax return with our team at Retirement Tax Partners and determine, are there ways in this market and are there ways in your individual tax brackets that you could potentially be saving your family, hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of the retirement? The second thing that I want you to do in a down market is I want you to have a predetermined entry point. This is what we call at our office. It's called the buy on the dip list. We have talked about it on the show a couple of different times. If you go back and you listen to some of the past shows, we've been talking about running what I call the fire safety drill. No different than what you did when you had kids at home and you talked about if the house catches on fire, my kids are supposed to get outside. We're supposed to go to the neighbors and, we meet out in front of their house. And that's why, we run the fire safety drill so we don't panic when things catch on fire. And so by having a predetermined strategy is going to help you remove your emotions of investing. And look, I get it. Your emotions are involved when it comes to your life savings, right? It makes sense that your emotions would be involved. But having a predetermined strategy on what to do during different market environments will be a way that can help you make smarter, better investment decisions. Let our office run you a tax what if, find out how to take maybe a short-term panic in the market, turn it into a long-term opportunity, help reduce and minimize what could be your biggest debt in retirement. That's taxes on your IRA. And then the second opportunity is trying to take a look at, where are there opportunities to buy on dips within the market and using those predetermined strategies. So if you feel like your emotions are involved, I get it. It is an emotional battle. It's your life savings. That's where we can come hand in hand and walk down the retirement journey with you on that path to helping you get to a good retirement, to a great retirement.
Taxes are so critical because so many people are obviously concerned with the market. And, as we mentioned, and as Ken and you guys said so often, if the market takes a downturn, inevitably on time, it does come back up. You will be able to recoup that if you got time on your side. When it comes to taxes, you write that check to Uncle Sam, it is gone. So that is a pretty critical thing to take advantage of. Let the team at America's Retirement Headquarters, including Retirement Tax Partners, help you out with that. Just set up a time to speak with them, 419-794-3030, or go to the website and reach out there as well. That's arhq.com. This will continue to be a big year for retirement. Over 11,000 people will turn 65 every day. Every year, Nationwide does a retirement study and asks when people plan to take Social Security. Currently, 42% of them said they'll claim the benefit before their full retirement age while they're working. The upside of that is, you give yourself a little bit raise, but what is the downside, if any, for making this decision?
I definitely think there could be some downsides of early Social Security. And this is something that what we've done is we do Social Security optimization reports. And there's some really good tools and software that are out there that would allow you to look at your individual situation, and especially in a married couple situation, it applies because the decisions that you make can have substantial long-term impacts. And it's, kind of shocking to me that to see that 42% said that they're going to claim their benefits, before their full retirement age, knowing that they're going to get a lifetime reduction of benefits, and they're going to also do that while they're working. So when you look at the downside of that decision, first and number one is you're going to get a permanent reduction of your benefits. Taking Social Security as early as age 62 is going to be a permanent reduction of 25 to 30% compared to waiting to your full retirement age. For example, if your full retirement age benefit is $2,000 a month and you claim the benefits at the age of 62, it could be reduced to somewhere around $1,400 to $1,500 per month. Number two is it's going to be a reduced survivor benefit. I have a lot of people that will come in and they'll say, hey, Nolan, I've run the analysis. I've taken a look at it. I got to live to be 78 before I even break even. And nobody in my family ever lived that long. But what they're not thinking about in a married couple situation is the impact it could have on survivor benefits. So if you pass away, your spouse's survivor benefit is going to be based upon what you were seeing and receiving. Claiming early means that a benefit could be lower for your spouse. So just because of the fact that you think maybe you don't have a lot of longevity there in a married situation, you want to think about that. Number three is you want to think about claiming early and the impact it's going to have on your cost of living adjustments. So there's a lot of positive actually about Social Security. It is a cornerstone for most folks' retirement time. If you add up the amount of what the benefits are for a married couple over the course of their lifetime, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not $1 million or more of total benefits if a couple lives to, say mid-80s. But claiming benefits early also negatively impacts your cost of living adjustment, since the cost of living adjustments that you get on Social Security is based upon your benefit base. Starting with a lower benefit base, your future increases are also going to be lower. Number four is you have the potential tax implications, and there's a couple that go into effect here. We talked on an earlier segment about the importance of Roth conversions, and I think building tax-free dollars is important, but when you kick on Social Security, you're going to have the tax implications that come in, meaning that Social Security income could be taxable if you're looking to do Roth conversions. Of course, we have on the show with America's Medicare Associates, Scott, Troy, and Dan have talked about the cost of your health insurance. If you retire before the age 65 and you're going to get health insurance, you could lose your tax credit that you get under affordable health care if that's going to be what your solution is as well. So again, it can be kind of a double whammy impact when you think about the taxes that you could pay, losing the tax credits you get for health insurance if you're going to need to get affordable health care. Number five is you have an earnings limit potential. So in that opening segment, they talked about somebody claiming benefits before reaching full retirement age. If you claim benefits early and you continue to work, your earnings above a threshold, it's like $21,240 in like 2023. It gets adjusted a little bit each year, but it would result in $1 for reduction in benefits for every $2 earned above that amount. Once you get to full retirement age, that penalty no longer applies, but those can be benefits that are lost early on if you continue to work. Number six is you're going to have a reduced lifetime benefit. So again, if you do live longer, that benefit could be substantially less. Delaying your benefits after age full retirement, most people age 66. Let's say you delayed until age 70. You can then also get an automatic 8% increase as well. Number 7 is inflation is something that's a big problem. So locking in lower benefits means that inflation will come back to haunt you later on in life. The cost of living adjustment is not the same as what true inflation is because of how they calculate removing food and energy out of the formula. So inflation can have a big impact. Claiming early, again, can mean negative for spousal strategies. You want to take a look at, what is a strategy in your situation versus what your spouse is going to take. It's going to really kind of limit what some of your choices are as well. So what you really want to do here is, again, you want to have our office or you want to have somebody run a Social Security optimization report. What I would encourage you to do is when you run the report, just put in what you were planning on doing and let the software run the analysis, and then let the software run the couple hundred different scenarios to determine what could be your best approach. And so maybe you don't claim it right away at 62 or as soon as you retire. At the same point, maybe you don't wait until age 70. But by having that Social Security optimization report, you're going to be able to make a much more educated decision about what is the right choice for you. And if you want to schedule that, we have that right on our main website at arhq.com. You can click on that Social Security optimization report, and we can get that set up for you.
Again, think of it kind of like the Goldilocks approach. You don't want to claim it too early. You don't want to claim it too late. You want to find the one that is just right for you. Now, mind you, there are situations where people will need the income right at 62, but claiming it just because of fear of the solvency of Social Security or just because you want to claim it, probably not the right move. A better step, of course, having that Social Security optimization report run. You can do that, as Nolan said, arhq.com, or give a call and figure out how it figures into your overall picture by setting up a time, 419-794-3030. There was a new survey that tested people's knowledge about retirement, and this was one of the questions. Quote, Susan worries about living a long life and running out of money. What is the best way for her to address that possibility? These were the choices. 1, she could buy an annuity. 2, she could buy life insurance. 3, well, there's nothing she can do. Nearly half of the people answering the survey, they got it wrong. When clients have a negative view of annuities coming in, because there is a stigma around it, we are aware of that, how do you help them understand what an annuity actually is?
Well, first and foremost, I would say that annuities can be complex. And some annuities can be very expensive. And there's, in my opinion, there's good annuities and there's bad annuities, just like there's some good stocks and bad stocks. And what you want to do is you want to figure out what are you trying to accomplish. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was an electrician, and I would oftentimes get sent out to different sites to do different things. And I had my kind of go-to bag. And, in that bag, I could do 90% of the things that I needed to do. And it's a matter of trying to use the most efficient tool to get the job done that you want to do. As an example, could I pound a screw into a wall?
Good,
right? Yeah. But is it the most effective way to do it? No, I'd want to either use a nail or I'd want to, switch that hammer out for a screwdriver and screw it in, depending on what I'm trying to get accomplished there. So a lot of times people are using these products in not the most effective way. And, part of understanding what an annuity is, the first thing that you need to understand is that there are different types of annuity. There's 5 different types of an annuity. Number 1 is you have a fixed annuity. A fixed annuity is typically going to offer you some type of minimal guaranteed interest rate, and you're typically going to take it out for a set period of time. Think of it as you can buy a fixed rate of return for 1, 3, 5, 7, 10 years. Fixed rate annuities right now are some of the highest interest that I've seen since my children have been born. So fixed rate annuities, big fan of them. I like the multi-year guarantee rates that we see today with no fee type products. Number 2 is you have what is called variable annuities. And variable annuities, they vary with the stock market. So they can go up and down based upon the underlying sub-accounts. And the variable annuities are the ones that have a lot of the fees and expenses. I generally have not been a big fan of variable annuities because of the fees and expenses. So again, I had somebody had recently come into the office. They had attended one of our workshops. And when we were talking about, developing written retirement income plan for them, one of the things they said to me is, our son told us whatever we do, we don't buy an annuity. So, well, that's curious. I'm curious on why,
Yeah.
he said that. And he said, well, my son told me that those are buried with fees. And so it's not all are buried with fees. So the first type that I talked about, a fixed rate annuity, there's multiple fixed rate annuities that don't have a fee. They just pay you a fixed rate for a set period of time. But, unfortunately, the son was throwing all annuities into the camp of number 2, those variable annuities. I had a client that wanted the growth potential of the stock market, but he couldn't lay his head on his pillow at night knowing that if he passed away, his wife wasn't going to get the same level of income, and he wanted an enhanced death benefit if something happened to him. So in his case, a variable annuity made sense because it gave him the most growth potential. Although it did have fees and expenses, it allowed him to lay his head on his pillow at night knowing that his wife's income would be taken care of because of the joint income feature that he had on that. Number 3 is you could have what is called an index annuity. Index annuity is another product that I think is something that I like. It's, typically tied to where interest rates are. So the higher the interest rate is, usually the better the offer that you get from the insurance companies of America. Right now we have record level high rates. What an index annuity is ability to provide protection against loss if and when the market goes down. You get to participate into a certain level of growth if and when the market goes up. That could be a maximum known as cap. That could be a percentage of the gain. Those are the typical ways that they do that. Number 4 is an immediate annuity. So an immediate annuity is something that would start payments right away when you put a lump sum of money in there. We talk about, gaps of income needs that people have in retirement time. So if you looked at retirement and your Social Security and pension maybe left you a little bit short, let's just say $1,000 a month, you could go to the insurance companies of America and you could say, based upon my age and what income I want to get, $1,000 a month, how much capital would I need to put into an immediate annuity to make up that gap of income? That's where a solution like that would be. Number 5 is you have deferred annuities. So you could utilize a deferred annuity. Let's say if you were thinking that you're not going to retire for 5 or 10 years and maybe you wanted to have a known amount of income in 5 or 10 years, then you wanted that money to provide that predictable income at a future date. A deferred annuity would be an option to consider. So annuities, the basics are they have 2 phases. You have the first phase, which is, that accumulation phase. You can either, put a one-time deposit into it, or you could have an account that allows you to have multiple deposits on an ongoing basis. And then the second part that you have is the distribution phase. And this is where I think a lot of people have confusion as well. A lot of times people think when they turn to the distribution phase, they now have lost access to their principal. And that is the word annuitization. And I would say, in my 30 plus years of experience, it's pretty rare that somebody actually annuitizes an account. Usually what people do is if they have an income rider, they'll take the income benefit and or they may just take the free withdrawal and or they may just take the interest that's earned off of the account. So usually during that distribution phase, most of the time you're not going to lose access to your principal balance, meaning that if you change your mind, you still got that money there, meaning that if you pass away, your beneficiaries are going to still use and get whatever money's left over. So the benefits are you can have predictable income. You could have some tax-deferred growth if it's a non-retirement account. You could have death benefit. You could have protection against outliving your savings. Some of the downsides, as I talked about before, is you could have fees and expenses with some of the higher cost variable annuity contracts that are out there. You have surrender charges, so you got to pay attention to liquidity. Some of the products are complex when you talk about, the crediting methods of caps and fees and spreads. Those are the key considerations to take into consideration when buying an annuity. This is another area, again, that we spend a lot of time. If you want to understand more about an annuity, just reach out to our office, whether you have an annuity that you don't understand or whether you're considering an annuity for retirement purposes, we can help you out.
Extending that education beyond the show, beyond, the events that they do throughout the year, but, continuing the education here, especially as it pertains to something as, I think, mired or as stigmaed as an annuity because there's a lot of people with reactions to the word, either based on experience or older information. But providing that education, as Nolan said, it is a tool. Think of it as a tool in a toolbox. You may not necessarily need it for every project that you do. You may not need it in your toolbox at all, but you want to at least entertain the possibility of it. And then you also want to be wary of the fact that it is not a one-size-fits-all, a cure-all sort of situation. You don't want that Swiss Army knife approach, but finding out if it could be a valuable part of your strategy is as simple as reaching out to the team at America's Retirement Headquarters. You could do that by going to the website, arhq.com, or you can give a call as well, and that's 419-794-3030. Once again, that's 419-794-3030. Playing the Mega Millions lottery is getting more expensive. This weekend, the price of a ticket went up from $2 to $5. Obviously, praying for a windfall or a big inheritance is no way to fund anyone's retirement. It's a gamble with the lottery, right? How do you take calculated risks to pursue a more balanced strategy for clients?
Well, I think, this is an area that technology has dramatically improved, helping investors make better calculated decisions when evaluating risk within their portfolio. I was at an event and it kind of stuck out to me that somebody had told me that they had felt that investing in the stock market is like gambling. I said, well, if that's the case, I want to be the casino, not the player, because, they don't build those big casinos on winners. Mm-hmm. The casino has taken calculated risks to put the odds in their favor. I use for our clients a software program where we create an investment policy statement for every one of our clients and help them understand and calculate the risk in their portfolio. And then what we do is we optimize the overall approach to try to put them in a position that helps them achieve the highest potential return. So when we put together this investment policy statement and we utilize a software program called Riskalyze, what it'll do is it'll first tell you what your level of risk is from 0 to 100. And so think about it like in terms of driving a car. If there's an economic crash at 75 miles an hour, it's probably going to be much more painful and quite frankly could be deadly for a retiree than if you're going 25 miles an hour. So before there's an economic crash, in the investment policy statement, we can tell you what your risk number is. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to have this software give you what is called a grade point average. And the grade point average says that based upon how your portfolio is put together and constructed, are you building out a portfolio that gives you the highest potential return for the level of risk that you're willing to take? And your goal is to get a GPA score of 4.3. That's the highest that this software goes. And so we'll do portfolio analysis for clients, and we'll maybe find that their portfolio has a 3.7 GPA, which quite frankly is not a bad GPA. A 3.7, I think, is, good GPA. But it does show that there is room for improvement if we can go up to 4.3. Mm-hmm. That's where portfolio optimization can come in. And so we can then slice and dice within looking at the portfolio to figure out where are the risks that are dragging the returns and where are there potential opportunities. Within the risk, then we can also look at what is the predictable amount of income that's coming into the portfolio. And that could be from their fixed income sources. That could be from the dividends that they get from the stocks. Because when you're looking at retirement, the risk of outliving your income is a big threat that many retirees have. So the more that we can look to develop predictable income and know what that income is in the portfolio is great. And then finally in that software, what we can do is we can now stress test your plan. And when we stress test it, what we can do is look at different market environments. So, what if we had another COVID or 2008? And then that allows you to develop a plan that says, if those risks are too big for you, what are some changes that we can make now before something bad happens? So if you want to, look at what the calculated risks are in your retirement, get a hold of our office and we'll put together an investment policy statement for you.
All you have to do to get that investment policy statement, better understand the risk, not just market risk, but the myriad ways that your retirement plan could be at jeopardy. 419-794-3030 to get that investment policy statement. Once again, 419-794-3030, or you can go to the website, always available there. Find out more about the team and set up a time to speak at arhq.com. As always, I want to thank you for joining us here on America's Retirement Headquarters. It is the home of the Retirement Guys Formula, Retirement Tax Partners, and America's Medicare Associates. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Nolan, always grateful for the time. Thank you. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final word.
If you haven't done so yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Either way, we'll be back next week, same time, same channel. And just remember, when you think retirement, think America's Retirement Headquarters. It's home for your entire retirement.
America's Retirement Headquarters is located at 1700 Woodlands Drive in Maumee, Ohio. You can reach them by calling 419-794-3030 or online at americasretirementheadquarters.com. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Nolan Baker is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your attorney, accountant, and or tax advisor for advice concerning your particular circumstance. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Nolan Baker, Ohio Insurance License Number 27787.